The For the People Act, in its senatorial form, fails on the Senate after it is filibustered once again. And the first thing we hear is how evil the filibuster is. I know, you're shocked. But we'll go over that and some of the drama that led up to that, and even the op-ed that Kirsten Cinema penned to talk about how she felt about all this. Yeah, there's plenty of that there. The former bodyguard of former President Trump is now under fire as he is a chief operating officer now of the Trump organization. And yeah, they're going to go after him to try to get him to roll over too. So we'll talk just a bit about there. The hedge fund that bid against GameStop has now gone under. So we'll go over a little bit of what that means. And Andrew Yang has conceded his position for New York City Mayor. I almost said New York State government, but New York City Mayor. It's going to be all of this and more. Hey, hey, hey. Do you trust the plan yet? I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, good morning. This is going to be an interesting day, don't you think? After we saw the filibuster thing go on and the Voting Rights Act, and I mean, if you guys are on Twitter, today is going to be an entertaining day. Fuck, yesterday was an entertaining day. And we all knew what was going to happen. That's the thing, and people are pissed for something they've been preparing for since the first time they said, "For the People Act." Which I like what Ted Cruz has to say about it. It's more like the For the Corrupt Politicians Act. But, you know, who am I to judge other than somebody who sits back here and screams in front of a microphone every day here. But we're going to go over that, and it's going to be all this and more over on Contemporary. But before we get started, head on over and check out my friends from the Freedom Scoop Media Group. Our website is still pending, but that does not stop you from going over and checking out great shows such as The Generational Gap, The Daily Ignoramus, who we will probably be rating at the end of the show because this one might be a long one. Also, check out The R-Rated Conservative, The Freckles and Brit Show, newly revamped to be The Freckles and Brit and Rachel Show, and The Breakdown with Birkenhoff. Head on over there, bookmark the website, and check out all of my friends. And once we are back up and running, you can head on over to our website and help us support great creators. All right, let's look in at some of our finance for the day here. I'm going to move this over, though. So we got a few finance things to go over here. A little bit of the out of order that we usually do when there's Bitcoin news. So we're going to talk a bit about that as well here. Starting on the Dow, though, of course, the Dow is at 33,945.58 points. That is a rise from yesterday after it dumped off, but it's just a little bitty rise. It tried. They tried to hold it up throughout the day, but it struggled throughout the rest of the day, and it looks like the futures have turned back against it here. So let's see what IBD has to say to start out with for the morning. Dow Jones Futures market rally takes big step. Microsoft hits $2 trillion. Bitcoin rebounds from Ed Carson. Dow futures were little changed Wednesday morning, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures. The NASDAQ hit a record high, leading a solid stock market rally on Tuesday, getting a boost from Federal Reserve Chief Jerome I can really talk this morning. Jerome Powell. Meanwhile, Bitcoin rebounded strongly after plunging Tuesday to a 2021 low in a key test. Microsoft cleared a buy point, and we got an advertisement. Microsoft cleared a buy point to a record high on the cusp of joining Apple with a $2 trillion market cap. Upwork broke out in strong volume. ServiceNow, Twilio, American Eagle offered various early entries. Microsoft and ServiceNow are on the IBD leaderboard. And IBD long-term leaders UPWK stock and American Eagle were added to Swing Trader on Tuesday. Fed Chief Powell gave a rather dovish stance on monetary policy before Congress on Tuesday. He expects a lot of economic improvement in the coming months, while recent inflation spikes should be short-lived. Fed Chief Powell largely echoed his comments following the latest Fed meeting on June 16th, but it served as a counterpoint to Friday's quasi-hawkish comments from St. Louis Fed President James Bullard on Friday. Powell's comments turned mixed market rally in mid-afternoon, trading into a solid session by the close. The 10-year Treasury yield edged lower on Tuesday, but so did the 2-year yield. On the futures, Dow futures were just above fair value. S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures lost a fraction. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. I love how they say stock market rally. We just looked at the graph. That was not a rally. That was barely a squeak out to say, I won! Maybe, just a little bit. I mean, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ were up a little bit higher, but nobody cleared a percent. That's not a rally. That's just sad. But regardless, that's what we're going to see, and that's what the investors think the economy is going to do in the near-term future, so we'll sit back and watch that. Let's grab one here from CNBC. S&P 500 jumps for a second day. NASDAQ hits all-time high amid Bitcoin's comeback. From Yoon Lee and Tanaya Macheel? Is that how you pronounce that? M-A-C-H-E-E-L. I think, yeah, that's Macheel. The S&P 500 ended Tuesday just short of a new closing record, while the tech-heavy NASDAQ composite climbed to an all-time high as Bitcoin staged an intraday comeback. The blue-chip Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 68.61 points to 33,945.58. After posting its best day since March on Monday, the S&P 500 climbed 0.5% to the end of the day at 4246.44, while NASDAQ erased earlier losses and climbed 0.8% to hit a fresh intraday record and finish at 14,253.27. Bitcoin endured another wild session that saw it break below 30,000, only to later turn green on the day. At one point Tuesday, the world's largest crypto wiped out all of its 2021 gains. Tesla, a Bitcoin holder, climbed as the digital token bounced off its low. The electric vehicle company was up nearly 0.5% by the end of the day. Major technology shares led the market rally Tuesday as Netflix climbed 2.3%, while Amazon, Apple, Microsoft all gained at least 1%. Facebook jumped 2%. Alphabet shares turned higher even after the European Commission opened a probe into Google's advertising unit. On Monday, the blue-chip Dow gained 580 points for its best day since March, as shares tied to the economic recovery snapped back from last week's sell-off induced by the Federal Reserve's updated projections on inflation and interest rate hikes. This is a precarious time. Stocks have gone relatively long period without any major sell-off, and there is a heightened sensitivity to every utterance from the Fed as it attempts to transition to the start of normalization, Invesco chief global market strategist Christina Hooper said in a note. And there is some stigma to it, too. I guarantee you, just given the political leanings of a lot of the big bankers at this point, I'm going to say there's probably going to be some stigma to the idea of whether or not we sell off as investors. Because if investors do get up to start to say, oh, well, I don't feel comfortable in this market here, I got to sell off, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people off in the bank at this point that are going to come out and say, what are you, some kind of racist? What do you want, Trump to win? Because if you sell off, that's going to make the market look bad. And what do you want? Those evil Republicans to win? Look, they just won on the voting rights thing. So I bet you there is at least a little bit of stigma that goes along with that. Fed Chief Jerome Powell is testifying before the House of Representatives Tuesday on the central bank's response to the pandemic. His remarks, which were released ahead of the hearing on Monday evening, supported the notion that the Fed is ready to soon start discussing removing some of its unprecedented stimulus measures enacted during the pandemic. That's more like everything's going to run out and shit's going to crash in a fucking hurry. Hate to tell you. Hate to be the bearer of bad news. I'm just waiting to see what happens with this rental thing. Once the eviction moratorium is up, because we're getting there in a hurry. Indexes hit their highs of the session as Powell answered questions from House members. There was no headline from Powell that looked to be clearly responsible for the gains, but the Fed chief was bullish on the economic comeback and maintained that inflation forces were temporary. There also could have been some relief buying from traders, worried that Powell would be a bit more hawkish on rate increases than the central bank was last week. Since we last met, our economy has shown sustained improvement, Powell said Tuesday. According to the Fed release, widespread vaccinations have joined unprecedented monetary fiscal policy actions in providing strong support for the recovery. Indicators of economic activity and employment have continued to strengthen, and real GDP this year appears to be on track to post its fastest rate of increase in decades. But still, and this is the best part, well, we had 6% of GDP growth, and this is the fastest growth that we've ever had. Yes, you shrank the economy, the GDP, 35%, with blue state governors shutting down, and a president that was reluctant to shut the rest of the country down to go with it. With blue state governors shutting down, and just these big economic drags on the economy, you shrank the GDP at 35% in the third quarter last year. And you don't think that's going to sit back and affect how everything else goes? And the way you're coming back? You're not coming back. You're replacing what was lost. Granted, Obama couldn't do that. And I remember that when the crash came and they had the economic loss, but, he never had a single quarter of 3% growth. Regardless, that's what we see coming back out of that. Let's look at your Bitcoin for the morning here. As mentioned, the Bitcoin was down below 30,000 briefly yesterday, but it has come back up to $33,989 and 40 US cents per coin, which is, that's a tremendous comeback for one day, but, not official financial advice, but I do hope that some of you did get to buy some Bitcoin while it was on sale. And I think that was a part of it too. While it was on sale, people were going back and buying it up. And then it looks like, according to CNBC once again, Microstrategy now owns over 100,000 Bitcoins worth more than $3 billion after the latest purchase. From Kevin Stankiewicz. Microstrategy said Monday it owns more than 100,000 Bitcoins after completing another purchase round, this time spending roughly $489 million on 13,005 tokens. Shares of the Virginia-based enterprise software company closed down 9.7% Monday, mirroring a similarly sized slide in the price of Bitcoin. The cryptocurrency was down more than 7%, around 32,600 per token, as reports surfaced that China was ratcheting up its crackdown on Bitcoin mining. Microstrategy said the average purchase price of 105,085 Bitcoin Trove is 26,080 apiece. Including fees and other expenses, the company's holdings were worth more than $3 billion as of Monday. Microstrategy said the average MicroStrategy has in the past year gone from relative obscurity to a well-known force on Wall Street and in the crypto community thanks to its aggressive bets on Bitcoin and the evangelizing from chairman and CEO Michael Saylor, who routinely touts Bitcoin on Twitter. He's racked up more than 1 million followers on the social media site. In a CNBC interview last week, Saylor defended the company's crypto pursuits, which has involved debt offerings in order to buy more Bitcoin. MicroStrategy also recently filed for a program to sell $1 billion worth of additional stock, proceeds from which can be used to acquire Bitcoin. We rotated our shareholder base and transformed ourselves into a company that's able to sell enterprise software and acquire and hold Bitcoin, and we've done it successfully with leverage, Saylor said. That has increased the power of the brand by a factor of 100. We have our best software quarter in the last 10 years. Last quarter, he added, noting total revenue was up 10% year over year. The Bitcoin business is driving shareholder returns. I think employees are happy. The shareholders are happy. MicroStrategy stock has soared since the company announced its maiden Bitcoin buy before the bell on August 11th. The shares have risen around 423% from its August 10th close to Friday's closing price of $646.46. So we've got a little bit of a Cinderella story here where these people are going off and they think that Bitcoin is the future. They're going to go back and buy it. Is it the future? I don't know. I'm going to pay attention to it. I'm going to watch it and see what happens, but I don't know where this goes and what happens with this. But definitely something to see, definitely something to watch. And, I hope that you were able to get a little bit of Bitcoin while it was on sale. I think it's going to hold steady right where it's at for a little while here, but This is not official financial advice. This is just from sitting back and kind of watching what this does every day. I also get a kick out of it, and I'm not going to read this article, just I wanted to point out the headline here over on the trending now side. This 33-year-old Dogecoin investor refuses to sell despite losing over $167,000 in one day. Well, this guy, who doesn't have near that much in Dogecoin, also refuses to sell. I'm not selling any of it. None of it. If it goes down and it tanks, I lost $20. If it goes to the moon, well, I'm still going to hold on to it just to see. Just to see where it goes. It's kind of a fun ride. I'm not going to lie. All right, let's get in. Let's check your gas for the day. From Gas Buddy out of Madison, Wisconsin, your Costco is at $2.69 base price. That's $2.65 with the Gas Buddy discount. Otherwise, we're looking at your 273s, 269s, 274s. A couple of stations have jumped up to 284, which is a little bit surprising, I'm not going to lie, given the fact of what we're seeing here, and the gas price is holding steady. But we will see what happens with that. This might be an instance where we are going to see a little bit of upswing on all this. So let's get into the big news of the day and the title card of the day as well. Starting with the Dissociated Press. GOP filibuster blocks Democrats' big voting rights bill. From Brian Slodisco, Christina A. Cassidy, and Lisa Mascaro. The Democrats' sweeping attempt to rewrite U.S. election and voting law suffered a major setback in the Senate on Tuesday, blocked by a filibuster wall of Republican opposition to what would be the largest overhaul of the electoral system in a generation. The vote leaves the Democrats with no clear path forward, though President Biden declared, come on, man. This fight is far from over, man. Come on. The bill, known as the For the Corrupt Politicians Act, would touch on virtually every aspect of how elections are conducted, striking down hurdles to voting that advocates view as the civil rights fight of the era, while also curbing the influence of money in politics and limiting partisan influence over the drawing of congressional districts. But many in the GOP say the measure represents instead a breathtaking federal infringement on states' authority to conduct their own elections without fraud, and is meant to ultimately benefit Democrats. Well, yeah, I mean, it came to power with no Republican support whatsoever. It's legitimately an entire Democrat wish list. It failed on a 50-50 vote after Republicans, some of whom derided the bill as the Screw the People Act. I kind of like that one too, I'm not going to lie. Denied Democrats the 60 votes needed to begin debate under the Senate rules. Vice President Kamala Harris, the first black... Why is that detail necessary? She's not even black in the African American sense. She's black when it's convenient. Presided over the chamber as the bill failed to break past the filibuster barrier. Biden praised Senate Democrats for standing together against the ongoing assault of voter suppression that represents a Jim Crow era in the 21st century. In a statement from the White House, he said that their actions, though unsuccessful on Tuesday, they took the next step forward in the continuous struggle. The rejection forces Democrats to reckon with what comes next for their top legislative priority in a narrowly divided Senate. They've touted the measure as a powerful counterweight to scores of proposals advancing in GOP-controlled state houses, making it more difficult to vote. That's an entire news show. Like, I could just spend an hour talking about that. That last clause in that last sentence. An entire hour talking about what goes on there. Once again, oh, that's Schumer. Let's do the Schumer voice. Once again, the Senate Republican minority has launched a partisan blockade of the pressing issue, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said from the chamber floor. He vowed that the vote was the starting gun and not the last time voting rights would be up for debate. Whatever Democrats decide, they will likely be confronted with the same challenge they faced on Tuesday when minority Republicans used the filibuster, the same tool that Democrats employed during the Trump presidency to block consideration of the bill. I love that that line got put in here. I love that line got put in here. I really do. Republicans showed no signs of yielding. Republican leader Mitch McConnell called the bill a solution looking for a problem and vowed to put an end to it. Texas Senator Ted Cruz dismissed it as a partisan legislation written by elected Democrats designed to keep elected Democrats in office. And more graphically, Senator Shelley Moore Capito called the bill a despicable, disingenuous attempt to strip states of their constitutional right to administer elections. Yes, that should never have come close to reaching the president's desk. And here is the important part of this entire thing. We could skip the rest of this over here, just on this little paragraph right here. Pressure has been mounting on Democrats to change the Senate rules or watch their priorities languish. A group of moderate Democratic senators, however, including Joe Manchin and Kirsten Cinema, have ruled that out, denying the votes needed to make a filibuster change. There it is. This had nothing to do. And here's some of the problem that goes along with this. Now, Capito is right. This goes directly against Article 2, Section 1, that grants the states the authority to conduct their own elections as they see fit. And I told you that when they first started writing this. Hell, I told you that when they first started talking about striking down voter ID in the 2018 midterms. I've been talking about this. Article 2, Section 1 guarantees states the rights to administer their own elections as they see fit, because there's a lot more people on the state ballot than there are on the national ballot. Hell, there's only one person on the national ballot. So the states can sit back and decide how they vote for everybody else, from their state representative, their national representative, their national senator, which should go back to being done by the state legislature anyway, but their alderman, their state representative, their state senator, if their state has a senate, their mayor, their dog catcher. All these are done on a state level. In fact, the majority of people you vote for are on the state level. The vast majority are local politicians. The vast majority of offices you will vote for are local. Almost none of the people you will vote for throughout your life are federal. That is something to keep in mind as we look to Article 2, Section 1. And as we start to look for ways that Democrats want to see a virtual top-down control over every single thing there is, which seems to be the end result of what we're trying to do here. But furthermore, and furthering this off, this doesn't pass the Supreme Court because of Article 2, Section 1. This bill had no place in reality. Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Barrett, even Justice Roberts would have looked at this and said, this isn't constitutional. I would almost be willing to bet that this would fail in the Supreme Court on a 9-0 fashion. But you know what this does? And this was the point of the whole thing. This had nothing to do with going back and changing voting laws or making it easier to vote. This has nothing to do except for another way to come back and demonize the filibuster. And really, realistically, Democrats only need to gain 2 more seats to get over the threshold. And if they can put their progressive foot soldiers in and gain the 2 seats to a 52-48 majority, then they can come in and say, filibuster's gone. Fuck that, we're done. Thus, bypassing Manchin and Cinema. And then they can go back and do whatever they want. This was a campaign ad for the Senate. This was a campaign ad to go back and try to get Barrett and Kavanaugh and Gorsuch removed. Now, that is actually a little bit trickier because that does require a constitutional amendment. Impeachment and removal is constitutional. The filibuster isn't. They can change that on a whim. But the impeachment and removal thing, that is actually enshrined in the Constitution. 2/3 majority in both chambers for the removal side of it. So, but regardless, we will see what happens with that. But this is DOA. But there's still a lot of news that goes along with it here from Yahoo News. Voting rights bill fails in Senate as focus shifts again to the filibuster, just like I just said, too. It's all about the filibuster at this point. They don't care about a goddamn thing else, except for getting rid of that filibuster and doing whatever it is that they can. This is from John Ward and Dylan Stableford. The For the People Act, the sweeping voting rights bill championed by Democrats, was blocked in the Senate Tuesday as it failed to reach the 60-vote threshold needed to overcome a Republican filibuster in the evenly divided chamber. The procedural vote to open debate on the bill was supported by all 50 Democrats and opposed by all 50 Republicans. So, and there's something else that I do want to point out to this. Now, Manchin came out and said that, yeah, he was going to sit back and he was going to oppose this bill when it came out. But the vote that we saw, which blocked the bill essentially from even getting out to the floor for debate, that's what we voted on. And even that failed the filibuster at this point. Republicans filibustered it, and it's not going anywhere. It's dead in the water at this point. They didn't even have the official vote on the bill itself just to get down and debate whether or not to bring it to the floor for a full vote. And that failed. The legislation would have made it easier for people to vote by mandating 15 days of early voting and no excuse absentee voting, which these evil Republican states that have passed new voting reforms have in their voting reforms, by the way. Allowing for same-day voter registration, which my state has. And unlimited ballot collection, enacting automatic registration for federal elections and lowering identification requirements. It actually bans voter ID. President Biden called the vote the suppression of a bill to end voter suppression and another attack on voting rights that sadly is not unprecedented. The fight, man, it's far from over. Far from over, man. I've engaged in this work my whole career. And we're going to be ramping up our efforts to overcome, again, the for the people, for a very, very democracy, man, the president said in a statement. It would also ban the practice of partisan gerrymandering, in which state legislatures redraw congressional districts in irregular shapes that are designed to give their party an advantage. Good government advocates say that nonpartisan commissions should redraw the lines every 10 years after each census. Republicans, meanwhile, argue that the For the People Act is a sweeping federal power grab that includes numerous impractical provisions. Some election experts agree with this assessment. Okay, and that's a big part of the problem here, and they keep bringing up gerrymandering too, the process in which parties of both sides redraw districts in their favor, and Democrats, by the way, you are just as fucking guilty of this as everyone else. But your populations do shift and change. They do. And sometimes, yes, you get a large amount of Republicans that move into one area that want to be represented by a person or are just on the edge of it. Regardless, the idea of gerrymandering and how it gets done does not belong in the federal government. That belongs in the state governments. Just like everything else that you're trying to put into this bill. And there are states out there that have laws against partisan gerrymandering. So what you need to be doing is going back to your state houses and bringing the people that support you on the federal level to the state house and say, we demand an end to this, or we demand an end to that. We demand this, we demand that, and see where it goes over. Plain and simple. Do this at the state level where it belongs. Stop trying to do it from the top down. All right. The House Plan Chief had a statement about this as well. Statement by President Joe Biden on the For the People Act. Today, man, Democrats in Congress unanimously came together to protect the sacred right to vote. That's not true. They came together to bring it to the floor for a debate. In supporting the For the People Act, man, and defending the rights of voters, they stood united for democracy, man. They stood against the ongoing assault of voter suppression that represents a Jim Crow era of the 21st century. Unfortunately, man, a Democratic stand to protect our democracy met a solid Republican wall of opposition. Senate Republicans opposed even a debate, even considering legislation to protect the right to vote in our democracy. It was the suppression of a bill to end voter suppression, Another attack on voting rights that was sadly not unprecedented. And yeah, we saw a lot more of this here, but yeah, that's him going out off of this. In addition, he had a tweet that went along with it that said, we can't sit idly by while democracy's in peril. Here in America, we need to protect the sacred right to vote and ensure that we, the people, choose our leaders, the very foundation on which our democracy rests. We urgently need the For the People Act. Send it to my desk. In which Styx, who was a friend of the show, said, Voter ID laws do not hamper voting rights. All right, I gotta pause for just a second here, so I will be right back. I'll throw some music back on for you guys, but I have to step away from my camera for a half a second. Alright guys, sorry about that. I had a really good year of allergies last year and almost no allergies whatsoever. And now I'm suffering and paying the price for it this year. So I do apologize for having to come back and take a pause off that one. It's unprofessional, I know, but probably less unprofessional than picking up a Kleenex and blowing my nose right on camera. So let's keep going here. I've got a Bobak K. Persis over here that says, the Senate Minority Leader must not dictate to the Senate Majority Leader what bill passes. Majority Leader Schumer must summon the entire Senate and order all-nighters until Senate Republicans drop the filibuster or filibuster until they drop. Democracy is calling. But, I mean, regardless off of that, that just tells me what you're trying to do here. This is a tyranny of the majority kind of thing, where you can't even be bothered to try to sell your ideas to the other side. It's just our way or no fucking way. Now, if you had 60 senators to come back and pass the For the People Act, I would surmise that means that enough of the people of this country have come together and said, you know what, we want to have one side ruling everything. Because 60 of us, 60 places of us, 60 of our states, 30 of our states, let me rephrase that, 30 of our states have said, yes, we want to have one party or the other go, and we want to have the agenda of one party or another. But given the fact that we're so dead evenly split, means that somebody's going to walk away with hurt feelings no matter what. But that's where we're going to go from there. No cocaine. I have a CDL. Otherwise, maybe. But no, I have a CDL. All right. From USA Today. Republicans crush voting rights, making a mockery of their support for Juneteenth. This is from Donna Brazil. So this is an op-ed, but I thought it bared repeating as well. Basically, once again, trying to shame everybody back into going the way that we want to. So let's look just a little bit into this here. This is personal to me. Some Senate Republicans have won an important battle in their disgraceful war on democracy. It's the same war on democracy that our founding fathers had, by the way. But it was a major defeat for the American people and our right to vote, a fundamental right long denied to millions of black Americans, including my enslaved ancestors and my own grandparents and parents born in the South after slavery ended. Okay, full stop. What the fuck does that have to do with what's happening now? You were the head of a major political party to the point that you gave debate questions to the person that you favored to want to win. And you got away with it. You're not sitting in a cell right now, which you should be. Because of the fact that you did that and tried to rig the election. Because we can say the 2016 election was rigged, but the 2020 election was perfectly fair and above board, and Joe Biden got more votes than any candidate in history, thus making him the most popular president that ever lived. Honk honk. But what the fuck does any of that have to do with anything now? We had a black president. This whole, it's civil rights era and Jim Crow all over again. That shit flies out the window. In fact, we actually might be able to say just a little bit something of that if Hillary had actually won in the primary in 2016. Coming just a week after congressional Republicans joined Democrats to designate Juneteenth as a federal holiday marking the end of slavery, the Republican opposition to even debating the For the People Act makes a mockery of their support for the new holiday. Making Juneteenth a holiday shines a long overdue spotlight on America's immoral embrace of slavery and racism, but suppressing the votes of black Americans and other Americans is a fresh assault on our rights. It wasn't until Lyndon Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which could be argued, by the way, is unconstitutional as well. Just saying. Into law that my parents and many other African Americans in the southern states could finally cast ballots. The law was a major victory in the long struggle against racism that continues to this day. I became politically active 4 years ago as a 9-year-old, helping 4 years later. I'm like, woman, I know ladies like to lie about their age, but you were not 9 years old 4 years ago. I'm sorry. I misread that. That was my fault. I became politically active 4 years later as a 9-year-old, helping to identify families in my neighborhood who hadn't registered to vote. That launched my life's work of encouraging Americans of every background to participate in our democracy. I went from organizing voter registration drives as a college student to working on Democratic presidential campaigns, including serving as the campaign manager for Vice President Al Gore in 2000 and later as an interim chair of the Democratic National Committee. See, this paragraph right here makes the first paragraph bullshit. Because the fact that you could work on the Gore campaign means that everything you said here is meaningless. That we've overcome the Jim Crow era. Otherwise, if we were still in Jim Crow America like they keep trying to make us believe, Donna Brazile would not be allowed to put this into the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness. I'm sorry, this is the USA Today. She wouldn't be allowed to be on a TV, on a camera, on a campaign, working alongside white people. This is crap. And also I've been thinking more about this and realizing the fact that the Voting Rights Act of 65 is actually unconstitutional as well, for the same reason that the For the People Act was unconstitutional. Both of them are, because Article 2, Section 1 still exists. It requires a constitutional amendment to make these legal, to make these acts actually valid. I believe there is a constitutional amendment for the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I believe that is the case. I would actually have to go back through and read the amendment that gives black people the right to vote. To see how that goes. But regardless, yeah, none of this. I mean, this is an opinion piece. So none of this has any bearing in reality whatsoever. You lost. But you still won because now you get to say, filibuster, filibuster, filibuster. Oh my God, that evil filibuster. Look at that evil mansion and that evil cinema. And here we will go. Until the election day in 2022. All right, from the Daily Wire. Cruz unloads on Democrats' election bill. Schumer inadvertently is right. This is Jim Crow 2.0. From Daily Wire News. On Tuesday, Senator Ted Cruz slammed Democrats' attempts to pass the For the People Act, which would be a massive overhaul of U.S. elections, saying the bill was similar to Jim Crow laws. We've heard the Senate Majority Leader invoke the booming terms, specters from our sorry history of racial discrimination in the past, Cruz said. The Senate Majority Leader has used the phrase Jim Crow 2.0 repeatedly, as has the President of the United States, as has the Vice President of the United States, deliberately inflaming racial tensions, suggesting that laws, common sense voter integrity laws in states like Georgia and Texas, things like requiring voter ID or requiring signature verification and absentee ballots are somehow a modern manifestation of Jim Crow. Video? Video. No video because it's 15 minutes long. This is a grotesque lie, Mr. President, and the Majority Leader knows that, Cruz pointed. The President of the United States knows that. The Vice President of the United States, they know they're lying. But ironically, they've inadvertently said something that is accurate about this piece of legislation. Jim Crow legislation was grotesque and ugly. It was legislation that was drafted without exception by Democratic politicians. Jim Crow was written by Democratic politicians, and its purpose, when the Jim Crow laws were written, were to prevent the voters from ever voting out of office Democratic politicians. One of the ugliest chapters in our nation's history, and thankfully, we repudiated Jim Crow. Well, the Majority Leader used the phrase Jim Crow 2.0 inadvertently. He's right, but not about what he's describing, Cruz continued. He's right about the Corrupt Politicians Act. The Corrupt Politicians Act allows the exact same pattern that Jim Crow did. It's a partisan legislation written by elected Democrats designed to keep elected Democrats in office and steal the right to vote from the citizenry to decide on somebody else. Well, Cruz is a little bit right. Now, once again, for the majority of this, a lot of this is going to affect what happens in very, very majority blue areas. But, you know, there's infiltrators that can go off onto other red areas then, and, you know, no, that would never happen. That's voter fraud, and something like that would never happen. Never mind, we're not going to talk about that one here because I know Susan is watching. Remember, we got struck down and lost a video because of child endangerment. It's still on Twitch, by the way, and we'll get it uploaded over to BitChute as well. But, I mean, I can see where he's going with this, too, with the fact that, yeah, this is designed to keep Democrats in power. And I never thought about the fact that Jim Crow, that was, because I thought that was just about restaurants and stuff. I didn't realize that was also to keep black people from voting, because, I mean, that was the party that freed the slaves. Now that he's mentioned it, I put two and two together, obviously, but that had not crossed my mind prior to that. So it's interesting to see. It's interesting to watch. All right, from ABC. Manchin to join Democrats in Senate showdown. Vote over voting rights. From Libby Cathy. Senate Republicans on Tuesday were poised to block Democrats' landmark legislation on voting rights later in that day, but West Virginia Democrat Joe Manchin, who had been holding out, announced that he would join colleagues in a show of unity against the GOP move. Senate Majority Leader Charles U. Schumer said Manchin will vote to move forward with debate on the measure in exchange for a promise from Schumer that Manchin's proposed amendment with major changes would get a vote if debate opened. It wouldn't go anywhere, but it would get a vote. Manchin released a statement saying that while he does not support the original bill Democrats are pushing, he has found common ground on a possible new version. Earlier, Manchin told ABC News congressional correspondent Rachel Scott, "We've just got to keep working. That's what we're here for." Let's have a listen.
President Biden's message to you about this yesterday? You spoke to President Biden about this bill yesterday. What was his message to you about it?
No, we had a good conversation. He and I had a very good conversation.
Did he ask you for this bill?
We had a very good conversation. It was a very respectful conversation.
Does this mean an end to this critical legislation on voting rights getting passed?
What now?
Is this an end to this critical legislation getting passed? What happens next?
Well, we just got to keep working.
If this bill fails,
That's what we're here for.
what does that look like, Senator? Are you going to go out and try to find Republican votes?
I'm always trying to. I need other help. I need other Democrats looking for Republican votes.
What was President Biden's message to you? What was President Biden's message to you in that meeting?
Just to be clear, you're
We had
undecided.
a nice conversation.
Did
President's messages are very, very
Because
confidential.
I know you guys were talking also about infrastructure. Did he urge you to support a party line approach to pass?
Not really. No. He understands exactly. We had a very long conversation about that and looking at a way. We have a lot of needs in our country. We have a good bipartisan bill we're working on. I got to keep going. We have a bipartisan bill that we're working on together. So he understands that. And he likes the movement that's going on there. And he encourages basically a very good process that we're going to have on the
Bottom line on voting rights, you need more assurances that it's
I mean, and this is part of where I say with a filibuster too, because, I mean, no, that's not enshrined in the Constitution, and I've never pretended that it was. I've never pretended that the filibuster is a constitutional thing. It is not. It never has been. That is a provision that ensures that senators have to work together with the other side or have such an overwhelming majority that it represents the will of an overwhelming majority of the people. One of those two things has to happen in order for the Senate to overcome the filibuster. And all that I keep hearing when they keep saying we need to end the filibuster is our ideas are super unpopular, so we need to just jam them down all the dissenters' throats rather than actually try to sell them the other way. But yeah, Manchin got promised that his amendment would hit the floor. I don't know if they'd go anywhere, but he got a promise. Let's grab one from the Hill. Cinema defends filibuster ahead of Senate voting rights showdown, from Joan Carney. Kirsten Cinema is digging in on her opposition to nixing the 60-vote legislative filibuster amid growing pressure from progressives to change the rules to help pass voting rights. Cinema, in a WAPO op-ed, argued that nixing the legislative filibuster would weaken democracy's guardrails and that the country would lose much more than we gain. It's no secret that I oppose eliminating the Senate's 60-vote threshold. My support for retaining 60-vote threshold is not based on the importance of any particular policy. It is based on what is best for our democracy. The filibuster compels moderation and helps protect the country from wild swings between opposing policy poles, Cinema wrote. The op-ed comes a day before the Senate will hold a vote on trying to advance the For the People Act, a sweeping bill to overhaul federal elections. Cinema supports the bill, but it is guaranteed to fail to advance because of a GOP filibuster. So, and I caught this right after we got off air yesterday morning, and I've got the op-ed actually archived over here, so let's just look briefly into this one here. I will link this back into the Discord as well, so you guys can go read it for yourselves in its entirety, because it's quite lengthy, and we're not going to go through the whole thing today. But I do recommend reading it. So this is from Kirsten Cinema. Everyday Arizonans are focused on questions that matter most in their daily lives. Is my job secure? Can I expand my business? Can we afford college? What about healthcare? Can I retire? Is my community safe? Meanwhile, much of Washington's focus is on a Senate rule requiring 60 votes to advance most legislation. Arizonans expect me to do what I promised when I ran for the House and Senate, to be independent, like Arizona, and to work with anyone achieving lasting results. Lasting results, rather than temporary victories destined to be reversed, undermining the certainty that America's families and employers depend on. The best way to achieve durable, lasting results: bipartisan cooperation. I understand bipartisanship seems outdated to many pundits, but the difficult work of collaboration is what we expect in Arizona, and I still believe it is the best way to identify realistic solutions instead of escalating all-or-nothing political battles that result in no action or in whipsawing federal policy reversals. Since I was elected to Congress, a bipartisan approach has produced laws curbing suicide among troops and veterans, boosting American manufacturing, delivering for Native American communities, combating hate crimes, and protecting public lands. It's no secret that I oppose eliminating the Senate's 60 vote threshold. I held the same view during the 3 terms in the U.S. House, and the same after I was elected to the Senate in 2018. If anyone expected me to reverse my decision, because my party now controls the Senate, they should know that my approach to legislating in Congress is the same whether in the minority or the majority. Once in the majority, it's tempting to believe you will stay in the majority, but Democratic Senate minority used the 60-vote threshold last year to filibuster police reform proposal and COVID relief bill that many Democrats viewed as inadequate. Those filibusters were mounted not as an attempt to block progress, but to force continued negotiations towards better solutions. Right on. I like Kirsten Cinema. I don't like a lot of her policies, like a lot of her policy prescriptions of guns, of socialism, of various ways that she thinks would be better served for the country. But I like Kirsten Cinema a lot. Kirsten Cinema is probably one of the more intelligent members of that chamber as it is. And she's absolutely right. And that's another one of those things that had not crossed my mind until I heard somebody else mention it. At this point, it's the lasting legislation, and it's the same thing they say about DACA. It's not fair that you have to live wondering what your policy is going to be or what the rules are going to be the next time somebody changes power. How can you make a long-term plan when a different majority coming in can change that plan at a moment's notice within 2 years? How do you make a 5-year plan if all the rules can change 2 years later because a different party took power? Whereas if we reach across the aisle, we can actually work together and find something that we can stick together and survive the next party taking over. I like Kirsten Cinema. I don't care what my neocon and Republican friends think about her. I like Kirsten Cinema a lot. All right, let's grab another one here from the Wall Street Journal, archived, of course. Shifting gears here, talking a little bit about some different things, including the former guy, which I try really hard not to talk about. Because he's irrelevant right now. Unless he runs again, he's irrelevant right now. But, yeah, we've got some news. We got to talk about him. From the Wall Street Journal. Trump's former bodyguard under scrutiny in New York probe. From Rebecca Balhus and Corinne Ramey. New York prosecutors, are investigating whether a top Trump Organization executive, Matthew Calamari, received tax-free fringe benefits as part of their probe into whether former President Trump, company and its employees illegally avoided paying taxes on such perks, according to people familiar with the matter. Prosecutors, interest in Mr. Calamari, once Mr. Trump's bodyguard, indicates that their probe into the Trump Organization's alleged practice of providing some employees with cars and apartments extends beyond Alan Weisselberg, the company's chief financial officer, and his family. Neither Messrs. Calamari and Weisselberg nor anyone connected to the company has been accused of wrongdoing. Receiving benefits such as free apartments, subsidizing rent or car leases from an employer, and not paying taxes on such benefits can be a crime, although experts say prosecutors rarely bring cases on such perks alone. No, but when you're trying to persecute a former president who made the evil mistake of defeating Hillary Clinton and the globalists, then that person must be punished. The Office of Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance Jr. has for months been pressuring Mr. Weisselberg to cooperate in its investigation, but there's no indication prosecutors have been successful so far, the People said. Mr. Vance's office, in coordination with the Office of New York Attorney General Letitia James, has said it is working on a broader criminal probe into potential bank, insurance, or tax fraud by the Trump Organization and its officers. Prosecutors in recent weeks advised Mr. Calamari and his son Matthew Calamari Jr. that they should hire their own lawyer, people familiar with the matter said. The elder Mr. Calamari, who works as the Trump Organization's chief operating officer, and his son, the company's corporate director of security, had previously been represented by a lawyer who was also representing other Trump Organization employees. One of the people said, yeah, the push here right now is get him to roll over. They're trying to get somebody to scream and squeal about Donald Trump. And they're trying to scare him. If Cyrus Vance Jr. had the goods on Trump, he wouldn't be dealing with a COO who used to be a bodyguard and a mid-level staffer. But he's trying to put an elbow into these people to try to get them to come out and say, oh yeah, no, don't put me in prison forever. Also, where's the evidence that Trump was directly, like, is he actually sitting in every single board meeting on every one of his companies, and he has many, and saying, okay, we're going to screw the federal government, and I want to keep my money, okay? We're going to do this because I said so. This is a grand conspiracy to save $40 on taxes, okay? A grand conspiracy. We're going to get thousands of people involved. They're going to be the greatest people ever, okay? That's not happening. And the fact that they're going to this level tells me they got shit. They got nothing. But I think we've all known that for quite a while. All right, from CNBC. This actually looks to be about the same information of everything else that we saw in the last one, so we're going to skip that one, especially with 30 articles. Let's skip that one here. But I've got another interesting one that we've got to talk about from Reuters. Biden's Justice Department may defend Trump in the Capitol riot lawsuits. From Peter Eisler and Joseph Tanfani. Former U.S. President Trump may have an unlikely ally to defend him against lawsuits alleging he incited the U.S. Capitol insurrection, President Biden's Justice Department. The Biden admin paved the way for that possibility, say constitutional scholars and lawyers in the cases, by arguing an unrelated defamation case against Trump that presidents enjoy a sweeping immunity for their comments while in office and the right to a defense by government lawyers. Biden's Justice Department used that rationale in a surprise decision this month to continue defending Trump in a case filed by E. Jean Carroll, who contends Trump raped her 25 years ago and then lied about it while in office, defaming her. That decision reaffirms the position and the department took under the Trump admin, and it has profound implications for several ongoing lawsuits, including one filed by 2 U.S. Capitol police officers seeking to hold Trump liable for injuries they suffered defending the building in the January 6th attack. Attorney Philip Andonian says he fears the Justice Department, under the same legal rationale, will also defend Trump in a case Andonian is pursuing on behalf of U.S. Representative Eric Swalwell, Bang Bang with Fang Fang, a California Democrat. No. He is wait for it, a Chinese Democrat. See what I did there? Swalwell alleges Trump incited the deadly January 6th riot in an effort to stop Congress from performing its duty to certify Biden as the election winner. Andonian called the logic behind the department's decision to defend Trump against Carroll's defamation suit alarming. The Justice Department appears to put no limits on immunity for speech by a sitting president on any matter considered of public concern, Andonian said. The Justice Department declined to comment on whether it would be use the same argument as a basis for interviewing or intervening on other lawsuits Trump faces. The White House did not respond to a request for comment, but has previously said it had no role in the department's decision whether to defend Trump in the Carroll case or others. I'm interested as to how this actually came about, but I can understand the rationale behind it. Now, in other cases, I would say that, no, this shouldn't be a possibility, that the Justice Department should not be defending a person on an individual basis. They shouldn't. But everything that's coming forward, the E. Jean Carroll thing, the Swalwell thing, the Chinese Democrat thing, the Capitol Police officers, all had to do with Trump's actions as a sitting representative of the government, as a sitting president. Now, if I was the president in a divided political climate, our former president, let's go back to this. If I was the former president in a divided political climate like this, and my opponent defeated me, and somebody came back and sued me for something I did while I was the president, I would not want my opponent's Justice Department to be the one to defend me. That just seems like a conflict of interest. That just seems like I'm going to be shelling out a buttload of fucking money. So, yeah, no, there's no way that I would accept this. It's interesting that they can come back and offer it. But there's no way in God's green hell that I would accept it. I would say, no thank you, Mr. Garland. No, your services are appreciated. But with all due respect, Mr. Garland, go and fuck yourself. Because given the fact that I denied you, and this coming from Trump's position too, given the fact that I denied you your Supreme Court seat that all your constituents think that you're entitled to, yeah, no, I don't want you anywhere near my defense. You can go and fuck yourself. If you want me to, I'll buy you a dildo so you can do that, and just get the fuck out of here. I have lawyers. But that's what we see coming back off of that. It's interesting. I like it. I like the idea. I don't like the execution, but I like the idea. All right. Another former guy news. Trump organization sues New York City after golf course contract canceled in wake of Capitol attack. From Erica Orden and Paul LeBlanc. The Trump organization on Monday sued the city of New York after it ended its contract for a golf course at Ferry Point in the wake of the Selfie Fest on January 6th. In a lawsuit filed in the State Court of Manhattan, the mayor alleged wrongful termination of the contract in mid-January, saying the city and Mayor de Blasio had denounced President Trump in the most inflammatory terms and incited others to terminate business with Trump-related entities the day after the riot. Pointing to the comments by de Blasio had made earlier this term, in which he threatened to end the city's Trump-related contracts, the company said in the lawsuit, Mayor de Blasio had a pre-existing politically based predisposition to terminate Trump-related contracts, and the city used the events of January 6th as a pretext to do so. The company had operated the Bronx golf course since 2015. The spokesman for the city law department said Monday that the actions of Mr. Trump to incite the deadly riot at the Capitol on January 6 caused a breach of the Ferry Point contract by eliminating options for hosting championship events, and we will vigorously defend the city's decision to terminate the contract. The city properly followed the termination process detailed in the contract, and we look forward to selecting a new vendor for Ferry Point that will further the best interests of New Yorkers, the spokesman said. Okay, and this is another... and this speaks to the former president's ego. He's going to pursue this until the end of time because he thinks that everyone's just slighting him personally. Now, once again, I'm going to put myself in the position that he's in, given the fact that the city, like, let's put me as president someday. That's not a for instance. Let's actually just do that. But, okay, let's do a for instance then. And for instance, let's put me as president in, let's say, 2032, I'm sorry, because it would be on a 4-year. In 2032, J. Edgar for president. He wins, 2036 rolls around, and because J. Edgar was a real estate agent before going into the presidency, he wasn't one of the political insiders, and he managed to get a squeaker-by win. And they stacked the deck and rigged the election, even though you can't rig an election whatsoever. And the 2020 election was the freest and most fair election in history. And Joe Biden is the most popular president, getting more votes than even Barack Obama. But let's say you rig the 2036 election to get J. Edgar for president out. And because of the way that all the events went down, including the stuff that's made up by the global cabal of satanic pedophiles in a pizza shop, because of the way that it all goes down, now all the real estate that President J. Edgar had in Wisconsin and Madison suddenly gets terminated. J. Edgar goes and gets the fees for the termination of the contract in a lawsuit, and then moves to fucking Montana. Moves into Jake from Frida Scoop's backyard. He doesn't go in to try to continue to go down with this. He picks up his toys, he gives the finger to the governor, and he leaves. That's the way that we should do this. And that's the way the former guy should do this, but that's not the way he's going to do it. All right. From CNBC, shifting gears once again. GameStop stock jumps after the original meme stock cashes in again with $1 billion share sale. From Yoon Lee. GameStop shares climbed after the video game retailer said it sold 5 million additional shares, raising $1.13 billion in capital to accelerate growth. The original Reddit favorite meme stock jumped as much as 12.7% on Tuesday after the company announced the completion of its at-the-market equity offering program that was initially disclosed on June 9th. By afternoon, the daily gain was 10%. GameStop said it will use the proceeds for general corporate purposes, as well as investing in growth initiatives and maintaining a strong balance sheet. GameStop Steam competitor when? That's what I would love to see, because that was what I suggested they do with all the money they made off this. This is the second stock sale that GameStop has conducted since the company became a star on Reddit's Wall Street Bets forum, where retail traders aim to push stock prices higher and squeeze out the short-selling hedge funds. GameStop sold additional 3.5 million shares in April and raised $551 million. Investors have been encouraged by the news and look past the dilution of their stakes as GameStop took advantage of the monstrous rally this year, more than 1,000% to speed up its e-commerce transformation. All right, we're going to talk about this one in the next article, but, there we go. We're going to use, rather than just sitting on this because it was being short sold left and right, GameStop is going to use this to innovate and become something different, and possibly e-commerce. Like I said, Steam competitor when? That would be interesting to see, too, to have an actual competitor to Steam, somewhere where you can pipe video games right into your computer from GameStop, or maybe a virtual console of some sort. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. They might have some brand new technology that nobody else has that we can come back out and get video games from, but it's far from over at this point, and we're going to see some new stuff coming off of this, and I'm fairly excited. I think this is pretty goddamn cool, I'm not going to lie. All right, but on the other side of this here, from Forbes, London-based hedge fund closes after betting against GameStop becoming one of the first meme stop casualties. From Robert Hart. A London-based hedge fund that took on heavy losses after betting against GameStop in January has closed its doors, the Financial Times reported, becoming one of the first casualties in the retail traders piling into unpopular or heavily shorted meme stocks that saw some financial mainstays lose billions. Ha ha! Bye-bye! I have no sorrow for this company whatsoever, because this is one of those big billionaire companies that is taking, it's one of these big companies that says that you're not allowed to make money, only they're allowed to make money. And they get pissed when you make money off of your Dogecoin or your GameStop or your AMC. Both of which, by the way, and Dogecoin on top of it, both of which, though, your GameStop and your AMC, are using the money that they made off of this to innovate and give a return to the people who believed in them. I see a lot of good things coming back up off of this. But this hedge fund who says, oh, well, we're going to borrow stock and we're going to sell it and then we're going to give it back and pocket the difference because this one is failing and fuck this company. Good. Fuck you. I hope more of you fuckers lose. And I still remember how pissed off Shapiro got over this. Do you remember that, by the way? How pissed off Shapiro had hands in at least one of these hedge funds. I know he did. I know he lost an assload of money from this because he was on his show the next day. Well, okay, you can't just go out and buy a bunch of stock and inflate a bunch of stock because that would be bad for the market and that would be bad for everything else. Okay, gang? Oh, you should always trust your financial advisor to do whatever it is that you want to do for stock, and you should never trust anybody else, and you should never go on to Wall Street Bets, and Wall Street Bets is bad, and these people are just manipulating the market. Fuck you, and get a bigger head. I don't even want to read the rest of this here, just because that's the top of it. A London-based hedge fund is closing because they made the wrong bet and they tried to screw with the money supply, and they lost their asses for it. Bye-bye! More economic news. We got a lot of economy today. Unstable unemployment, high inflation. Jim Jordan blasts the Fed Chair Powell in hearing from COVID recovery. Representative Jim Jordan grilled the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell on Tuesday afternoon about high inflation and high unemployment in the U.S. Powell testified before the U.S. Subcommittee on Coronavirus Crisis to discuss the U.S. economic recovery following COVID-19 and the lockdown-induced recession. In prepared remarks, he emphasized rising vaccination rates, improving GDP projections, growing consumer expenditures. Powell admitted that inflation rates are rising and participation in the labor market has not moved up from the low rates and have prevailed for most of the past year, a reality relevant to the Fed's dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. During his questioning time, Jordan immediately challenged Powell on the policies affecting the Fed's ability to carry out its mandate. The Fed, though. Who in our audience loves the Fed? I think Ron Helton loves the Fed. All right, let's see what Jim Jordan had to say.
Chairman Powell, the Fed has two mandates, right?
Maximum employment and stable prices.
Maximum employment and stable prices. Seems like both got some problems today. I want to spend a little time on the first. Why are the jobs numbers so bad right now?
Well, I think we're digging out of a very deep hole. We've made a lot of progress, but I would agree with you. We have a long way to go.
Over 9 million job openings. Over the past 2 months, only 800,000 jobs added back. That's pretty bad. Is there a specific reason you point to as why those numbers aren't where we would, frankly, hope they would be?
You know, it's a good question, and my thinking is that there are some temporary factors that are weighing on job creation. And I mentioned those earlier. Another thing is actual hiring is at very high levels, but it's being offset by high levels of quits and retirements. So what's happening is that the net job creation has been lower, but actual hiring is high. And that's, in a sense, quits is a good thing because people are looking for jobs that they want more. Retirements are just something that happens.
What about unemployment benefits? Does that factor in as well?
It may be a factor, you know, and it'll be a temporary one because something like 15 million people will see either those benefits disappear or significantly decrease.
My understanding is the state unemployment plus the federal enhancements, $37,000 a year. Might that discourage people from going back to work?
You know, we're going to find out. We're going to find out because it's going to be gone really quickly.
I think we are finding out. You add in the stimulus package, child tax credit, family of four, it's about $110,000. I mean, every single employer, literally every single employer I talk to in our district, and frankly, employers I talk to around the country tell me they can't find people to work. And you think it's more of quitting and retirements, or is it more unemployment, or a combination, or what is it?
I think in terms of things that are weighing on people getting in the labor force, I think it's those three things I mentioned. It's still some people are still afraid of COVID. Maybe they're living with someone who's vulnerable. It's also schools are closed still, and having schools be open again will free up a lot of caretakers. I think unemployment benefits too. I think if you would expect a really strong set of jobs numbers.
All right, that's enough listening to him. I'm already bored by that. There's a lot of stuff that's going on there, and Jim Jordan is pushing the right buttons to this. He's definitely pushing the right buttons to this. And I pointed out too, I mean, the unemployment, doesn't that end like in a week? Isn't that over on June 30th? It's either June or July. I can't remember which one it is, but doesn't that end in like a week? And I went to work yesterday and I said, well, I know that the unemployment's going to be coming to an end soon, and you know, the struggle that you've been having to find employees, because we are struggling to find employees right now, that's going to come to an end. In fact, most of us are probably going to be priced out of it. So I'm going to get a little bit of work done here before I'm priced out of a job by 25 people who are coming in because they lost all their unemployment, who now are saying, I'll do anything for a paycheck, just anything. I'll take $5 an hour. Which they won't, because federal minimum wage is $7.25. But I got a feeling that there are going to be a lot of places out there like that are suddenly influxed with people who have realized that they don't know what the hell they're going to do because the federal unemployment is ending, and now they're looking at their bills saying, okay, what do I do? But yeah, absolutely. And that's going to bring the prices on a lot of stuff down in a hurry because, once people aren't making that much money, they're not buying the products. And it circles the drain, and it makes a big, big mess here. And this is going to be interesting to watch. All right. From the Hill, more Jim Jordan news. White House slaps down Jim Jordan attack on gas prices. From Dominic Mastrangelo. The White House is shooting down an attack from Jim Jordan, who linked higher gas prices 1 year after the coronavirus pandemic lockdown to the economy to President Joe Biden. Average gas price June 2020, 221. June 2021, 307. Jordan tweeted on Monday, President Biden's economy. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki responded to Jordan's tweet a few hours later, dismissing his assertion and defending that the job Biden has done, helping the country navigate out of the economic crisis caused by the pandemic. You forgot to mention that gas prices are the same now as they were in June 2018, or that this time last year unemployment was 11.1%. Today it's 5.8%. She said, the president agrees families shouldn't pay more at the pump. That's why he's opposed to GOP proposals to raise the gas tax. Republicans have been ramping up criticism of Biden's energy proposals and sees rising prices at the pump as a window to seize on frustrations of cash-strapped Americans ahead of next year's midterm elections. The fall of gas prices last year, however, was mostly because of the worldwide economic crisis. Generally, when demand is as strong as it is, you're not going to find any discounts, Patrick DeHaan, head of petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy, told The Hill last week. I think there's going to be some pent-up demand numbers here, and throughout the summer that's going to influence price. Yeah, that's one thing that I do need to point out with that too, and we do have to push back on Jim Jordan a little bit, which I don't really care for Jim Jordan, so I'll push right back on him. I'll put my fucking shoulder into it for Jim Jordan. There are problems that go along with that, with the assertion that this is just Biden. Now, one of the rises in the gas price is the fact that we are importing the majority of our oil now. We're not getting it from domestic sources anymore. That's going to change, and that's actually probably one of the things that's held it to the point that it's been held to, because the leases on land got overturned in a federal court. So we can come back and start getting domestic sourced gas again. That probably saved the Biden presidency, by the way. That probably actually gave him a fighting chance to make it in 2024 if he lives that fucking long. So keep that in mind as we go. But also keep in mind, and remember, what happened last year. I know a lot of people like to forget because they're so excited over the fact that they had sub $1 gas in some places. I mean, we got down to 93 cents a gallon here. And man, oh man, do I wish I could go back to that. But realistically, and I'm going to go right on realism for this, realistically, when we look at the gas prices last year, remember, there was a battle between Russia and OPEC went out and turned on the spigot as far and as fast as it would go, pumped as much oil out of the ground as they can to the point that they didn't have a place to keep it. And there was a gigantic tanker of oil just floating in the ocean because it was the only place that they could store it. So it wasn't just here. It was everywhere. And that was what drove the gas price down. It's not just Biden policy. That is holding it up artificially. Don't get me wrong. I'm guessing that if... and I'm just going to go by Wisconsin standards because we look at those every morning. But I'm guessing that if we just look at gas prices for Wisconsin, if we were still using the Keystone Pipeline, we wouldn't be at 99 cents, I can tell you that. But we might be at like 2.25 if we were still using the gas from the Keystone Pipeline. It wouldn't be 269, 279, 289, but it might be 225, 235. We wouldn't have the 99 cents, but, you know, we'd be somewhere in the middle. And I think a lot of you would be probably 60 cents lower or so than where you're actually at right now, too, for whatever your gas price is. So, yeah, it goes on both directions. It's not just Biden that we're up to the point that we're at. There are other external factors that go along with that. I know Republicans love to cite 2020 and the gas prices there because that looks really good for them. But really, there were external factors involved in that. All right, let's grab another one here from Axios. Longtime C-SPAN political editor Steve Scully is leaving the network. From Sarah Fisher. That's a face that'll give you nightmares. Longtime C-SPAN political editor and on-air host Steve Scully is leaving the network on July 2nd, Axios has learned. He will join the Bipartisan Policy Center as SVP of Communications. Scully has been with C-SPAN for over 3 decades. He has covered 8 presidential elections for the network. Scully has led C-SPAN's political program across the multiple mediums for 4 years. In addition to being editor, he's also host and producer for C-SPAN's morning show, Washington Journal, and appears on C-SPAN's weekly podcast. Since joining C-SPAN in June 1990, he frequently appeared on many of the network's other programs as well. Scully has interviewed every president since Ford, including Reagan, who he interviewed as a reporter for WSEE-TV in his hometown of Erie, Pennsylvania. He was president of the White House Correspondents Association from 2006 to 2007. In 2019, he was named Pennsylvania Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Last year, C-SPAN put Scully on administrative leave after he lied about his Twitter account being hacked. Scully was set to moderate the second presidential debate before it was canceled. And that was it right there. He was the guy who went out and looked for dirt on Trump and then lied about it because he thought he was sending a direct message. He lied about it. He got suspended. He got let back in. And now he's going to work on a think tank. So, swamp's going to swamp. All right, from the Daily Mail. Joy Behar is slammed as homophobic for making a crude joke about penetration in the end zone and saying it's not a big deal. Carl Nassib has come out as gay, the first gay NFL player. Now, I avoided this story when we first got the story about Carl Nassib because I don't care. I don't give a fuck how you fuck. As long as you don't involve me, who you screw is your own business. So I don't care about some guy who came out as gay for the first time on an NFL field. That doesn't interest me. I'm sorry if it interests you, and I looked over it, but I don't care. I really don't. Plus, me and the NFL are kind of on parted ways right now on top of it. But yeah, I don't care. It's not important to me who's gay on the football field. But the double standard is what I'm going with on this here, and that's where I wanted to point this one out. So Behar is out here, and she's making this homophobic, crude joke about penetration in the end zone because, I mean, I don't even know what this dude's politics are. That's the scary part. But I know that they've talked about, Trump getting raped in the ass and guys getting fucked. And I hope it hurts when something goes up your ass or something like that because they can make homophobic slurs against people that they don't like. But you better not do it against somebody who's actually gay. The View host Joy Behar has been slammed as homophobic for making a crude joke about penetration in the end zone and asking, is it really that big of a deal after Carl Nassib became the first active NFL player to come out as gay on Tuesday? Behar and her colleagues were discussing Carl Nassib's announcement on their ABC show when she kicked off the segment saying, I know he's the first active NFL player ever to come out as gay, but come on, it's 2021. Is this such a big deal? Then after being told by her co-host that it was a big deal, she joked, after they said penetration in the end zone, they lost me. Co-hosts Anna Navarro, Sarah Haynes, and Meghan McCain grimaced, but she carried on saying, I don't know how that this is such a big deal. She said that because other athletes in different sports have come out as gay before Nassib's announcement, the first from a player who's still playing in the NFL was not that big of a deal. Later, Behar made some attempts to apologize for the crudeness of her joke, but she stood by her sentiment that the announcement shouldn't get as much attention. I just long for the days where you can just be gay in the world and it doesn't become a big deal. That inappropriate joke I made for daytime television, scratch it. Make believe I never said it. We'll be right back. Twitter users immediately slammed her joke and her comments that it was not such a big deal. One said it was time for Behar to resign, writing, "Gay jokes were never funny, get a clue." Well, no, that's actually not true. Gay jokes have always been funny. You just don't use it to put a person down directly. But this is the other side of it, and it's the glaring double standard that we see for this. It's not the fact that she said it, because, hell, I've said worse on this channel. Stephen Ignoramus has said far worse on his channel. The Generational Gap has done far worse on their channel. The RRC, just about every show on our network, and just about every other show. Hell, I have, when I still watch Matt Christensen, I have made horrible, horrible gay jokes. As Matt and I once made love, super chats to him. I have made Blonde blush. Because I have made jokes that are so gay that she had to blush. I've made her call them gross. Because I can get so far. We've all done it. And they're hilarious. But this is coming from a person who repeatedly tells you that you're bad. If you would ever consider, for a second, just consider making a gay joke or saying the R word, for that matter, on top of it. I see what you did there, Neff. It's not Friday, and I'm not going to read it out loud, but I see what you did there. I see you. I see you, Nephilim. But that's where we have to go. And like I say, I don't really care who you fuck. I don't. If that's the way that you want to express your feelings of love and affection, I don't understand it. But have at it. Enjoy. All right, we've got one here from NPR. We're running up on the end of the show, which is good. And we're going to get to something I'm thankful for in a second. But first, we've got to read from NPR. Billie Eilish says she's sorry after TikTok video shows her mouthing a racist slur. This is already going to be ridiculous, but make sure that you donate because you have to remember, NPR cannot exist just on the taxpayer subsidy alone. They need your money. That's why they have those big red donate buttons everywhere. So it's got to be expensive to get microphones that carry your quiet voice, just like this, in such a quiet manner that you're calm and peaceful. So make sure that you get them our money, comrade, because then they can get more money, more microphones, and spread this communist propaganda. National Progressive Radio, please give us our money, comrade. This is from Bill Chappelle. Pop star Billie Eilish is apologizing for mouthing a racist slur after questions were raised by an old video of her that quickly went viral on TikTok. Eilish says she's being labeled as something that I'm not after critics said her actions were insensitive at best and racist at worst. Eilish, 19, responded to criticisms in a message posted to her Instagram stories. The footage in question dates from when she was 13 or 14 years old. She said, the video consists of several clips that have been edited together to highlight different scenes. Describing one of the clips, Eilish says, I mouthed a word from a song that at the time I didn't know was a derogatory term used against Asian members of Asian community. It was the first time she had heard the term, she adds. I'm appalled and embarrassed, and I want to barf that I ever mouthed along to that word, the singer says. Regardless of my ignorance and age at the time, nothing excuses the fact that it was hurtful, and for that I am sorry. The video has been circulating for at least the past week. A version posted by a TikTok user named 1CXBY was seen more than 1 million times. In a follow-up post, the user said she's a huge fan of Eilish. Rather than trying to cancel the singer, she added she wanted Eilish to address the recordings. After Eilish apologized, 1CXVY said she was glad the singer responded, adding that it's understandable and good that she had said something. Backlash over the video has brought an unscripted flurry of media coverage to Eilish at the time when the singer is building towards the release of a second album in late July. Eilish says she was talking gibberish and not mocking anybody. In another controversial clip, in the video, Eilish is seen and heard speaking in a way that many viewers see as her mocking a heavy Asian accent. Eilish says she was speaking in a silly gibberish made-up voice, adding that it was something she has done since childhood, when talking to my pets, friends, and family. It is absolutely gibberish and just me goofing around. It is no way an imitation of anyone, of any language, accent, or culture in the slightest. Eilish says, "Yeah, who would make fun of an accent from another culture, okay, Poppy?" Eilish ends her apology by saying, "I did not mean for any of my actions to have caused hurt to others, and it absolutely breaks my heart and is being labeled now in a way that might cause pain to people hearing it." Don't apologize. You did it. It's over. Don't do it again and move on. But once you apologize, they own you. I don't understand why people don't understand this. But for whatever reason, people don't understand this. They own Eilish. Well, they've owned Eilish for a while, but I mean, I've heard some of Eilish's music, and I'm not a big pop music person, but I mean, this sounds a little bit more, well, closer anyway, to some of the alternative and rock from the 80s and 70s. So I'm actually at least somewhat interested in the music. I don't know if I would regularly listen to it, but I'm aware of who this person is. But yeah, once you start apologizing, they own you, because then they will go back and find anything else to bring you back to your knees. Because they know that you'll apologize for it. Don't apologize. All right, from Politico. Let's talk about New York. Yang concedes as Adams takes the lead following a chaotic New York primary. "Oh, free money wasn't enough to get me elected. Oh, the math pin didn't work." From Sally Goldenberg and Tina Wynn. Andrew Yang conceded the Democratic primary for mayor of New York on Tuesday evening, admitting defeat after falling far behind frontrunner Eric Adams and two other opponents whose fates now rest with the city's new instant runoff voting system. The stunning reversal for former presidential candidate, who dominated early polls in the race, came less than 2 hours after voting ended, as the final outcome of the election was expected to take at least a week to resolve. You all know I'm a numbers guy, and I'm someone who traffics in what's happening by the numbers," Yang told supporters in Manhattan. "And I'm not going to be the next mayor of New York City based on the numbers that I've come in. Tonight, I am conceding the race. Oh!" Polls closed at 9 p.m. in the primary, New York City's first ranked choice mayoral election. Yang was trailing well behind Adams, the Brooklyn borough president, who had a comfortable lead in the first choice votes by 11 p.m., followed by Catherine Garcia and Maya Wiley. The two are now neck and neck for a second place. The winner of Tuesday's Democratic primary will face Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa in the general election, but the Democrat is almost certain to become mayor and will arrive at City Hall during a time of unique challenge, recovering from high unemployment, flattened tourism, and a chaotic school year of remote learning spread by the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah, after that video we saw last week, no, I'm sorry, Monday this week, because that was the Contemporary that got taken down. After that video that we saw, I can't imagine anybody would want to go and visit New York. Well, I'm a Boston fan, so as far as the sports side of it goes, I really can't imagine why anyone would go and visit New York, but that's just the sports side of it. But yeah, the tourism thing, that's been going down as well, and everyone's been locked in for a while too. I'm sure there are going to be people who want to go see the Statue of Liberty. I mean, that's been something that's been shoved into our heads since we were kids. The World Trade Center, or the site of the World Trade Center. What is it? One Freedom Tower now is what it's called. Somebody tell me in the live chat what the new World Trade Center is called. I think it's One Freedom Tower. Or, maybe go see 30 Rock and go see NBC. There's a bunch of stuff to go see in New York. But it's also become more desperate and more dangerous, more woke. And I could understand where people might not want to go as well. So, weigh it a little bit and see. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on here, but it's not going to be run by Andrew Yang. Giving away free stuff. And I have to wonder if it's just people saw through his facade or they just don't like the guy. I mean, he definitely knows what a bodega is. I can tell you that. Let's see here. What else do we have? NYC Democratic mayoral primary to proceed through ranked choice counting after no candidate wins majority outright, CNN projects. From Gregory Krieg and Ethan Cohen. The New York City Democratic mayoral primary winner will be determined using ranked choice voting tabulation, CNN projected on Tuesday night. But the question that will dominate the coming process is much simpler. Can Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, who raced out to lead after an initial count of early primary day in-person voting, hold on to his advantage? Adams, a retired captain in the New York Police Department, came out to chants of "The Champ is Here," Muhammad Ali's famous boast, sampled in a Jadakiss song as his headquarters in Brooklyn late Tuesday, after acknowledging the ranked choice process to come, spoke as the race was over. We know this is going to be layers. This is the first early voting count. We know that. We know that there's going to be 2s and 3s and 4s. We know that, Adams said. But there's something else we know. New York City said, our first choice is Eric Adams. The claim, though likely to be true, was premature. The city has yet to count absentee ballots, a process that is scheduled to begin on June 28th. Oh, so they haven't counted absentee ballots yet. So I wonder who it is that the DNC wants to win. And whose name is stuffed in all the ballots. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? No, there could never be any fraud through absentee voting. And Joe Biden got the most votes of any president in U.S. history. Honk honk. The Democratic mayoral nominee is expected to be determined by mid-July, and with Republicans barely putting up a fight, is heavily favored to win the general election in November. The winner will be charged with guiding the city into a new era, up and out from the devastation of the commie fucking coof. But the rebuilding job will be complicated by a spike in crime intertwined with the trauma and lost opportunities of COVID-19. The demands for an equitable economic recovery, along with public safety free from police abuse, will present the new mayor with a series of challenges unlike any in a generation. So that's what we're seeing coming back out of New York. I have no opinion on any of this because, well, let me rephrase that. Now that Andrew Yang is out of it, I have no. If Andy was still in this, I would say, do whatever you can to get that fucker out of there. But other than that, I have no opinion on this. So let's move on. I got just a few more, and then we will do something I'm thankful for and head on out of here.
Years after the deadly Capitol Gazette
Shut up,
shooting,
you.
the gunman.
Shut up, you. The meeting has degenerated. 1 arrest, 1 injury at chaotic Loudoun Schools meeting. From Drew Wilder and NBC Washington staff. 1 man was arrested, another man was ticketed for trespassing, and a third person was hurt at a chaotic public meeting on Tuesday on equity issues at Loudoun County Public Schools. Parents fired up about a proposed policy on the treatment of transgender students, as well as how schools should teach about race, held up signs, chanted, and sang the national anthem at the Loudoun County School Board meeting. Security was high after board members received death threats, as they did earlier this spring. State troopers assisted county sheriff's deputies. The school board unanimously voted to shut down the meeting after repeatedly issuing warnings about decorum and disruptions. Parents chanted, "Shame on you," and raised their middle fingers. They held signs that said, "We the parents stand up, in education, not indoctrination." Nearly 260 people had signed up to speak at the meeting. Wow. That's probably going to be longer than the LP meeting, but there might actually be more substance in this one. Maybe not. It's hard to tell. The meeting has degenerated, a school district spokesperson, as the board shut down the meeting and ordered people to leave. Let's see some video. Or this one. One man was acting disorderly and displayed aggressive behavior towards another attendee. The sheriff's office said in a statement. The deputy intervened and the man continued to be disorderly. Deputies tried to take him into custody and he resisted arrest. The sheriff's office said the man, whose name was not immediately released, was charged with disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Another man received a summons for trespassing after the school's officials asked those in attendance to clear the room. The sheriff's office said the third person received a minor injury, officials said, without releasing details. I got to appreciate the number of gay jokes that have showed up in the chat since I talked about the fact that gay jokes are hilarious. By the way. And yeah, the other dude is still around. Yeah, I don't do chat, like out loud chat during the week, because otherwise this would be a 3-hour show. Which you guys are chatting and doing really cool. I like that. But this would be a 3-hour show and I do still have to get to work. So that's the reason that I do it the way that I do. It's not that I don't appreciate your stuff, and I do go back and read all the chat at the end of the show and make sure I address the questions the next time through. But yeah, otherwise we would be sitting here for 3 hours a day. And I don't have the same lucky schedule that Stephen Ignoramus does, where he can sit for 3 hours a day. Going back to this, though, I mean, yeah, there are people that right now that are getting trespassing fines because they ordered to clear the room. Now, if nobody's being violent, then I don't see what's going on. Now, the violent people do need to be removed, obviously, because you do have the right to peacefully redress your grievances. But this is what you need to do if you don't agree. And parents need to be more involved in what's happening in the schools. That's one of the problems that we've been having with public education, the fact that we got Common Core to begin with, is that parents just want to go in and send their schools to, or send their kids, rather, to a long-time daycare to go indoctrinate them with whatever they think they'll need to be a good little comrade for the government while they go off and do their 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever the fuck it is and go chase that big fucking money. And they didn't pay attention to what was in the kids' homework. The kids just came in, did their homework, and regurgitated whatever it was that the school told them to regurgitate. That's how it was with a lot of kids in my school. Now, my parents did pay attention to what was in there because, well, there were subjects that I had some troubles with, and usually they had to do with social studies. Surprising now, given what I do now, but with some social studies. And I was more of a math guy, so they couldn't help me with math because I was far beyond what either of them were. And both my parents were good at math too, by the way. But I was far beyond the range of whatever either one of them could do. Far beyond that. But yes, I mean, if you have a redress of grievances with your government, which your school board is your government, then you need to have the opportunity to redress that peacefully. Don't hurt anybody, but peacefully let them know that you're watching them and this shit's not going to fly. And pay the trespassing fine. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to just ignore the fact and say, okay, I can't go to this, I might get a fine? If your kid's education's on the line, I don't think it is. And fucking homeschool if you can. Because these public schools don't give a fuck about anything other than pushing an agenda. Alright, but that's what we see coming out of here. I got just a couple more. Here's one from Holly. Josh Hawley says, critical race theory says America is oppressive and our future will be defined by racial divisions and strife. I reject that prophecy of America's future. I will take a stand on the goodness of the American people. I take my stand on hope.
The advocates of critical theory tell us we have to dismantle our culture, our history, our families, our Jewish and Christian heritage and beliefs because they're all oppressive. They say the future of this nation will be defined by racial division and racial strife. Mr. President, I reject that prophecy of our future and I take my stand on the goodness of the American people and the God who guides us. I take my stand on hope. Mr. President, it is not oppression that defines the American story. It is hope. From the Minutemen at Lexington and Concord, to the pioneers who found a new life in the West, to the heroes of the Underground Railroad, to the Union soldiers at Little Round Top, to the workers who fought the old monopolies for fair pay, to the women who won suffrage, to the young men who twice liberated Europe, to the civil rights demonstrators who faced down the likes of Bull Connor, to the firemen and police officers who rebuilt New York and gave this country confidence again in the years after 9/11. It is love for one another and love for our country that we call home that has defined our story and given us hope. And that love and that hope will define our future once again. I am confident of it. In this nation, we're not united by ethnic creed or race or religion, and proudly so. We are united by our shared history. We're united by what we love together. We're united by the...
All right, I'm bored with him. I mean, he makes some good points with this, too. So, yeah, critical race theory is oppressive. It's trying to teach you to hate each other based on the color of your skin. I thought we stopped doing that at some point, but regardless, we're back to doing that once again, it looks like. So, good on Holly for that. All right, a couple more than something I'm thankful for. Some California news for us here. Newsom wants to pay all back rent owned by low-income Californians using the pandemic relief funds. From Katie Labasco. Dude, you just gave away $15 million of your COVID relief funds. How much do you have left over? How much did you get exactly? Because I've got questions. California Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom, facing a Republican-led recall, is pushing the state legislature to approve his plan to use $5.2 billion in federal pandemic relief. I'm going to talk like Joe Biden for the rest of the show, looks like, man. Come on, man. Money to pay 100% of unpaid rent owed by low-income residents. Lawmakers are also considering several other pandemic aid measures proposed by the governor as they finalize the state's annual budget, including sending $600 stimulus checks to low-income Californians, providing universal pre-K, and investing in new housing for those at risk of homelessness. The state has the cash to meet the need. Are you sure? It got more than $27 billion from the American Rescue Plan. $27 billion to California? Are you out of your fucking mind? Holy shit! Wow! And is enjoying an unexpected budget surplus. Cookbooks. Boosted in part by capital gains tax revenues from wealthy California residents. And cooked books. California also received a combined $4.7 billion in federal funds allocated specifically for rental assistance from the American Rescue Plan. So that's on top of the... Jesus! How much money did we dump into this failing fucking state? Wow. Okay, then. Yes. Well, then. Like Newsom, many governors across the country have proposed how they want the federal money to be spent in their states, but need legislators to sign off. Those plans should be finalized soon as fiscal years come to an end, and all lawmakers approve their annual budgets, but states don't have to spend the money until the end of 2024 and may wait before allocating all of the funds. Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, who's up for re-election next year, called for using the money to send $1,000 bonuses to first responders and teachers, provisions that made it into the state budget approved earlier this month. Many of the governor's proposals include one-time expenditures like water and broadband infrastructure investments, rather than standing up programs that would need to be funded after 2024. Brian Sigritz, Director of State Fiscal Studies at the National Association of State Budget Officers. So, there you go. You are paying for however long, because we're still going to be paying this. Our kids and grandkids are going to be paying for this commie fucking coof relief package. We're going to be paying for the rent of Californians. Are you proud of yourself? All the back rent. My fucking head hurts, you guys. Seriously. How did we get here? How did we get to this point? All right. Last one. And then we'll do something I'm thankful for and head out of here for the day. From the New York Post, Florida woman goes to ATM to withdraw $20, discovers almost $1 billion in the account. From Jaren Steinbuch. A Florida woman reportedly wanted to withdraw $20 from an ATM and was stunned to discover her account boasted what she believed was a jaw-dropping balance of nearly $1 billion. When Julia Jankowski of Largo checked her Chase Bank balance before making a small withdrawal Saturday, her receipt showed $999,985,855.94 in her account, WFLA reported. The stunned customer told the outlet she wanted to return the massive amount because she could not get a real person to talk to at her bank. "Oh my God, I was horrified. I know most people would think they won the lottery, but I was horrified," Jankowski told the news outlet. "When I put in for the $20, the machine came back and said, 'We'll give you the 20, but that'll cause an overdraft, and you'll be charged.' And I said, 'Okay, just forget it.'" She added that she hasn't touched the account since. But Chase spokeswoman Amy Bonitadibus, that's how we're going to go with that one, clarified to the Post on Tuesday that what Jankowski thought was a balance was actually a negative in that amount that the bank posted to draw her attention to an issue with the account. That's fucking shitty and shifty. Our local branch and customer service group spoke to Mrs. Jankowski yesterday to clarify the discrepancy, the rep told the Post. Jankowski earlier told WFLA, "I know I've read stories about people who took the money or took out money and then they had to repay it, and I wouldn't do that anyway because it's not my money." She added, "It kind of scares me because, cyber threats. I don't know what to think." Hey, do you guys think, with the buy me the coffee there, do you guys think you can get my account up that high? What do you think? You think you can do it? You think there's enough of you? Yeah. Do you think you've told enough friends? The links are all right there. Subscribestar, buy me a coffee. PayPal. Come on. You know you want to. You know you want to. With the glare in my glasses, the wink is almost kind of moot, I think. Before the mix-up was resolved, she told WFLA that she couldn't get through to Chase. "I get tied up with the automated system and I can't get a person," she told the outlet. So, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with this. What it looks like, and it wasn't mentioned in this article, but I did see it in the Daily Wire article. It looks like this was actually an account that was held by her husband, who had passed away. And then because he wasn't because he was the primary person on it, because he wasn't alive anymore, they couldn't do the primary thing they didn't have a primary account holder on that account anymore, is what I gathered out of this. And I could be wrong, but that's what I gathered from this, is that it's just they had to change the primary account holder. But, well, it's all resolved now and everybody's happy. All right. And that's it for the news for the day here. So the last thing that we do is something that I'm thankful for. And I thought about this a little bit. I actually almost didn't do this one today because really, honestly, there are some personal things that are involved with that. Some personal names and some personal people that I don't want to talk about. But when I saw this article come up from Ars Technica, I realized that I can still be thankful that I don't live in the places that I used to live and not have to throw anybody else's dirty laundry under the bus. Because, I don't want to do something like that. But I went home this weekend, and for reasons that I'm not going to explain, I went back to the city that I grew up in. And I've been getting homesick lately. A little bit. Here and there. Just a little bit. Maybe thinking about going back there because, I've got a really, really good job where I am. But I've also gotten in for a really, really good job up there too. So it's not the employment anymore. That was the reason I got away in the first place. Well, that's not the only reason, but it was one of the big reasons that I got away in the first place was because I didn't think that there was going to be good enough work for me to stick around there because it's a very, very small rural area. I thought that if I could get out a little bit closer to a bigger city that I could get better work. Now, there are other reasons why, like I said, that I stayed away. But with that being said, I am glad that I live where I live and not in places that I've used to live. Now, the area I grew up, obviously, I'm not going to talk about, but I mean Kenosha. What do you know about where I lived in Kenosha? I was 6 blocks away from where all the hell broke loose. Do you think I'm thankful that I don't live in Kenosha anymore? You bet your ass I am. I mean, I would have been right in the middle of that if I'd have been there. That would have been all around me if I'd have been there. And I'm thankful I don't live there. And this right here, from Ars Technica. Even creepier COVID tracking. Google silently pushed app to users' phones. Updated. From Ron Amadeo. Over the weekend, Google and the state of Massachusetts managed to make a creepy COVID tracking apps even creepier by automatically installing them on people's Android phones. Numerous reports on Reddit, Hacker News, and in-app reviews claim that the Mass Notify Massachusetts COVID tracking app silently installed on their Android device without user consent. Google gave the following statements to 9 to 5 Google, and the company does not deny silently installing the app. Google's statement doesn't really address the issue of auto-installing the app without asking. The functionality of the CommonCoof exposure tracking apps are built into Google Play services as an API that government apps can use for tracking initiatives and can be automatically distributed by the Google Play Store. That's still not the Mass Notify app, though. Just like every other state, the National COVID app Mass Notify provides users with an interface to report CommonCoof exposure and view health statistics to their local population. If all of these users accidentally opted in to COVID tracking and forgot we'd expected a statement from Google to outright deny an automatic app rollout, Google's statement does not deny the silent install, though, and instead only says COVID tracking is not enabled unless users turn it on. Yeah, that's really cool and everything, but yeah, it's cool that they don't do it unless you turn it on, but the fact that you just went in. This was the reason, by the way. And, I mean, this was over an album. So you can imagine how we would feel about Google if they automatically did that to my phone, which they didn't in Wisconsin. But I stopped being an Apple user over an album that I didn't want from a band that I fucking hate. When the U2 thing happened, that was the last time I owned an Apple. I was at the Verizon store the next day and bought a Galaxy S4. S5, I'm sorry. I bought a Galaxy S5 at the at the Verizon store the next day. I told them to get rid of this shit. I don't want it. Why does Apple feel the need to tell me what music I am supposed to like? No, you don't do that. Fuck you, you don't do that. I will determine what software I want on my computer. I got rid of all the bloatware on my phone and on my computer as well. Thank you, Seawall, for that. But I will determine what apps and shit I want to use. So, yes, with this, I'm thankful I don't live in Redacted County, that I don't live in anymore. I'm thankful that I don't live in Kenosha anymore. And I'm sure as fuck thankful I don't live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. As much as I love the Red Sox, I'm so glad I don't live there anymore. Because this is draconian. This is bullshit. This is the Big Brother shit that 1984 warned you about. All right. I think that's all, you guys. I think that's it. So, with that, we're going to head out of here. Where's the music? We got the music. Do we got the live chatters that are disappointed that I don't read the live chat in the middle of this? Are those people around? I don't know. Let's get out of here. Okay, so those of you who are, once again, hanging around on Twitch, my friend Stephen Ignoramus is back up, so we are going to raid the Daily Ignoramus as soon as we're done here. So stick around after you see the title card, because we will go there as soon as we're done. Otherwise, we're done for the day. It's all over. Thanks to everybody who chatted in the live chat, and we'll make sure we'll get your names written down so I can give that special thank you. Also, the people over on the Instagram side as well, so thank you guys all for that. We will be back here tomorrow with more Contemporary, hopefully a little bit earlier than today, but I stayed late at work last night, so, and I used that time to do physical labor too, so I was dead in the water as soon as I hit that bed last night, and it reflected how I got up this morning, so that's why we were only at 7:15, not 7 like we're supposed to be, but come back and hang out in the 7 o'clock hour tomorrow morning for more Contemporary. Come join Stephen Ignoramus and I over on the Twitch side, because we'll go and check him out over there. And until then, until tomorrow, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.